Today, we're going to be going over a case study that involves cost analysis. The CFO mentioned that license costs have significantly increased from fiscal year 2021 to 2024, and we are responsible for analyzing the cause of why the license cost has increased so much. We're provided the historical financials from fiscal year 2021 all the way up to 2024, where we are going to use this to analyze the license cost. We're provided the license agreements to understand what the cost drivers are for the license fee. And then lastly, we're provided active license count per employee per vendor. This is set up where we have the service start date and the end date. And if the service end date is empty, it means that the license is still active ever since the start date. We're also provided a template for us to use to analyze. And if you're attempting this case yourself, feel free to generate your own template. But for this exercise, we're going to be utilizing this in order from top to bottom. So we're going to first analyze the license cost, then determine which vendors are generating the most license, and then analyze the license in terms of license count and the cost per license, and then lastly conduct a variance analysis to see whether the increase is due to volume or due to rate. The very first thing that we're going to do is capture the license cost per period, and we can see that the headers are all the last date of the month. So I'm going to first create an index to convert the posting periods into the last date of the month. So let's call this period index. And I'm going to generate this index by using the end of month function to convert the posting period into the last date of the month. And now we have the posting period. Now, when we're capturing the license cost within the Home tab, it mentions that the GL for license cost is 502.1001 software license. So we're going to set up a simple sum ifs where summing the gross amount, where the period reflects the period that we're analyzing, and then the account is 502.1001 license cost. So I'm just going to go back. So it's called software license rather than license cost. So let's call this software license and then convert this into a number with 1,000 separator. And now we have all the license costs. And I also want to capture the total per fiscal year. And to do this efficiently, it's always easier to set up an additional index. So we're going to call this year index. And I'm going to use the year function to just simply return the year for each of the periods. And then let's also set up them over here as well. So we're just going to call this 2024. 2023, 2022, 2021. And then sum ifs based on the year that we're analyzing. And then let's just copy this format over. So we can already see that the license cost since FY 2021 has almost doubled and near the tripling amount. So if we create a year over percentage, we can calculate that fiscal year based on fiscal year 2023. And then if we also add one more from 2021, 2024 change percentage, we can then just calculate fiscal year 2024 divided by 2021, and we can see it increased by 153% from 2021. So now let's analyze the different vendors. If we take a look at our financials, we have a field called vendors where all the software license are specified by the vendor that it relates to. So the way we're going to return vendors is we can actually do it a very simple and manual way. So I'm just going to first go to the headers here, and then up above in the Home tab, I am going to set up a filter over here by using the sort and filter function. You can then filter to remove the blanks. I'm going to copy this, probably somewhere that's empty. I'm just going to copy the values. And then I'm going to remove the duplicates by going to data, remove duplicates, and then press OK. So these are your 6 unique vendors that currently exist within your financials. So they are the only ones that we care about. So now that we have the vendors here, we're just going to copy this formula. And all we have to do is add one more criteria to our function. So now the vendor also has to match the vendor that we're analyzing. And then let's just copy this over. And now we have cost by vendor. And we can then copy this formula down as well. And here we can already see which vendor we have to dive deeper into given the materiality of the cost. But just for completeness, let's copy these vendors over here as well. And then percentage composition, I'm going to divide the license cost by the total license cost presented here. Instead of sum, you can also just divide by the total license cost above. And that might be easier, so I'm just going to do that for now. And to make sure that the formatting all stays in place, once you copy and you want to paste, you can press Ctrl-Alt-V, or within the paste function over here, you can paste formulas. So this is formula, so you're just going to click this one, and it will keep all the formatting without copying over the borders in multiple sections. And then I'm just going to copy this over here as well. And we can see that the vendor Quantix is taking up majority of the license cost. So the material vendor that we have to look into is Quantix. So when we're analyzing the cause of the increase in license, it is always attributed to whether we acquired more license volumes or whether the price for the licenses have increased. The way we're going to assess this is first capture the total license count per month, and then based on the amount that we've incurred, we can then calculate the average weighted cost per license and then see how that changes over the month and the years. First, we're just going to review the license agreement. So we have 4 licenses, but we realistically only care about Quantix. And we can see that there are 2 license tierings. The first one is the basic license, which is charged $2.99 CAD per month. And then we have the advanced license, which is charged $4.99 CAD per month. So now when we take a look at license count, again, we don't care about all the other vendors. We only care about Quantix. And we can see that there's a start date and there's an end date. The best way, given a data set like this, to capture the active amount of licenses per month is to create another schedule. So I'm going to create another tab called license schedule. I'm going to again set a filter for Quantix because this is the only one I care about. And then I'm going to copy this filter data set over here. Now we have all our Quantix licenses. And the next thing that I'm going to do is then copy these months over here as well. And now what I'm going to do is set up a formula so that it would return 1 if the date is after the service start date, and then return a 0 if the service has ended and the period is greater than the service start date. So we're going to set up an if function first. So let's actually zoom in here so that we can see this better. So I'm going to set up an if and then an and, because we know that there are 2 conditions. The first one is that the date has to be greater or equal to the service start date. And then the second condition, which is the date is less than or equal to the service end date. So if and the date is greater or equal to the service start date, And then the second condition, which is the date is less than or equal to the service end date. Then we want to return 1, otherwise 0. So now what happens when the service end date is empty? We can see that with the way the function is set up, it is currently not processing anything when the service end date does not have a value. So we can actually set up an OR function here as well. So if either or this condition is met, or the period is greater or equal to the service start date, and then let's just also make sure that we lock our references properly. And then when I apply this across, I can see that it is being applied properly. So let's apply this formula all across. And for easy viewing, you can also set up a custom format where the 0 values are presented as dashes. And just to test the August 31st, we can see that they are counted as an active headcount. And then from the month after, it's all 0. So this is working properly. So then to capture the license count between the basic and advanced, so I'm going to type basic and advanced. So then to capture the active license volumes, we're going to set up a SumIs function, sum January, where the plan type equals the plan that we're analyzing for. And then the total is just going to be a sum of the volumes presented below. And then we can apply this across to get the active license per month. And then let's copy these formulas from above. And when you're providing solely on license volumes, it might make more sense to use the average, but because we actually have to quantify the cost as a result of the headcount, we're just going to return the total for now. And then the cost per license is very simple. All we're going to do is divide the license cost for the Quantix vendor by the active headcount that we've calculated. So let's convert this into 0 decimal places. Let's actually calculate the annual amounts as well. Whereas in FY21 total, we have an average weighted cost per license of $331, whereas in 2024, it's around $393. And now with this data, we can conduct a cost volume variance analysis to explain why the cost has increased from $65K to $175K from 2021 to 2024. So we're going to specify cost variance and then volume variance. And then we have total variance and then a check. So to calculate the cost variance, we're going to subtract the current rate minus the old rate times the old volume. And then for the volume variance, we're going to subtract current volume minus historical volume times current rate. And then the total variance is going to be 110K. And then just to check, we can subtract 110K minus the revenue that we have here. So we can see that the rate increase is not as significant. It's only attributed to 12,000, which is only 11% of the cause of increase, whereas the volume variance attributes to almost 89% of the cause of the increase. So then to write the commentary, we have to first identify the difference between the license cost. So let's just specify FY24 minus FY2021, which is 118K, where the 110K makes up about 93% of that variance. So we'll first specify license cost has increased over 118K from fiscal year 2021 to fiscal year 2024, mainly due to the vendor Quantix. Quantix license costs have increased 110K, making up 93% of the increase in license cost. This is primarily due to, and then here we actually have some value in calculating the average, because when you're actually providing commentary, it's much more easier to provide the average volume of license as opposed to the total. So we're just going to calculate, or we're going to copy this formula here. Let's just move this over here. And then instead of sum ifs, we're going to use average ifs. So we can see that the average headcount in 2024 is 37, whereas in 2021 it's 16. So we can mention this is primarily due to increase in license volumes, as the average volume of license increased of 37, 21 licenses from fiscal year 21 of 16 licenses to fiscal year 24 of 37 licenses. The increase in license volume attributes to 89% of the increase in Quantix license cost of 97K, whereas the increase in rates attributes to 11% increase of 12K. And with this, you have completed the case study, and you can provide this commentary to the CFO with the analysis that you've prepared. We went through the exercise of analyzing the financial historicals and understanding the drivers of the license cost, and we've also been able to quantify the active license per month by creating a license schedule. I highly recommend that you give this case study a try. This is a very good example of what you can expect to do for an ad hoc task within the FP&A role. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out, and I'm going to be uploading more educational content going forward, so follow for more.